Hey guys, it's Rookx, and I'm here doing something a little different today. No gameplay, but as many of you probably know, in Shadowverse a new expansion is coming out very soon, probably at the end of the month, Tempest of the Gods. And I just wanted to discuss a few of the leaked cards we've seen so far, and how that might impact a few decks. And specifically, I just want to talk about the Haven archetype and the cards that have been leaked so far for Haven that I find interesting. So without further ado, I just want to get into it and want to start off with Heavenly Aegis. Mainly because it's the card that has a lot of hype around it for Haven. It's really been generating a lot of interest, and for pretty good reason. On the surface, its ability seems pretty absurd. It's a legendary. It costs 9 play points. It's an 8/8, and its ability is it can't be damaged, can't be targeted by spells and effects other than those that relate to attack and defense. Essentially, it is untouchable except for abilities that relate to attack and defense, which there currently are not a lot of in the game. So it's first off, it'll be interesting to see how many of these new effects regarding stuff that relates to attack and defense might be coming out in Tempest. Obviously, if they're going to be printing a very powerful card like Heavenly Aegis, they probably are going to be printing cards that interact with it in some way. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to do anything otherwise. But specifically talking about this card within the context of Haven, it's just a very powerful late game card, and it's a different kind of powerful late game card than Haven's seen so far. You know, normally Haven decks that play for the late game, obviously Seraph is going to be their win condition. But Aegis gives the deck a slightly different option. He kind of functions in a way similar to Mordecai, is what I was thinking. He's just this presence on the board that, like Mordecai, kind of different ways, but you can't really get rid of them. You unless you banish Mordecai, he's always going to stay there, just absorb damage. And same thing with Aegis. You can't really deal with him for the most part, and he's just going to sit there and threaten stuff. So unless you have a plan that's very quick, that you can do very quickly, it's just going to win you games that way, is the idea of the card. And I think the 9 play points is significant, because Seraph comes in at 8 play points optimally. That's when you're going to be playing it on your turn 8. So you might see situations where you go Seraph, Heavenly Aegis, and you use Aegis as a way to kind of hold off your opponent while you wait for Seraph to trigger. So another thing I was thinking of was perhaps the Guardian Sun Satan combo decks will have just another good card to put in it. Basically what it boils down to is I think Aegis is just going to be a very dominant card in any Haven archetype. There's no reason really to not run them in a lot of possible Haven builds. Going outside Haven for a second, if we consider all the cards that have been leaked so far for Tempest of the Gods, it's become fairly apparent that the new meta, if you will be inclined towards control. It won't be as much about aggro. So I think part of the reason why Haven might be doing really well is that they've always been more about control and just stalling and waiting until their endgame win conditions come up. And out of these leaks, there are a lot of really powerful endgame win conditions that are now available for Haven. Like just Seraph by itself is very threatening, obviously, but there's a lot of new stuff in here. So that's it for Aegis. Moving on, the other legendary that'll be coming out for Haven in Tempest is Dark Jean. She's a legendary follower. She's 6 play points. She's a 5/5. And her ability is Fanfare, deal 2 damage to all their followers, and then give +2/0 to all their followers. Now, obviously, first looking at her, you can see the similarities to Jeanne d'Arc. Obviously, they're kind of meant to play off one another in terms of art style and whatnot, but effect-wise as well, they're very similar. The key differences is that Dark Jean, she boosts all followers and damages all other followers. So instead of just affecting your own, she's affecting the entire board. The trade-off is that she costs 2 PP less than Jeanne d'Arc, and I think that's a pretty good trade-off. You're getting, at minimum, 2 damage on the board on turn 6 for no evolve. That's pretty strong, and it is similar in a way to Ancient Lion Spirit. Now, the difference is Ancient Lion Spirit is 5 PP, but you need an evolve to trigger his board damage. So I think it's interesting with Dark Jean that you don't need that evolve for the Fanfare. And I think that could make her maybe more of a meta call card. Potentially that she's more of a techie choice. She's not necessarily going to be a staple. And I really think it's not going to be immediately apparent how valuable it is. It's one of those cards that might become a couple months into the meta or a month into the new format with Tempest. It'll become apparent how good she really is. The same thing kind of happened with Seraph when it came out in Darkness. People were debating how good it was really going to be, and it turned out to be arguably Seraph's best win condition after Alana for that format, or possibly better than Alana. So sometimes with cards it's really hard to predict, obviously, how good they're going to be exactly, but I think it's an interesting card and it has a lot of promise. Moving on further, this isn't a Haven card, it's a neutral card, but I think it's interesting for Haven. Obviously, it's called Ezra Phil, and it's a legendary. It's 9 play points. It's an 8/8, and it has an ability, unevolved, Fanfare restore 4 defense to your leader, and then for unevolved and evolved, whenever this follower attacks, deal 2 damage to all enemies. So obviously, the restore 4 defense to your leader is playing into the whole Haven theme of healing up. Whether it's worth it at 9 play points just for that, not at all, I don't think. 4 defense at 9 play points isn't really anything. You've got an 8/8 body on board, but it's not that impressive. The only other upside is whenever she attacks, it deals 2 damage to the board, but, as I talked about earlier with Ancient Lion Spirit and Dark Jean, this board damage is already there earlier. Obviously, there are situations where combining the restoring 4 defense and the board damage all in one turn is going to be helpful, but I just don't believe that it'll be worth the deck space, especially because Haven has so many powerful late game cards. Do you really want to be messing up your curve possibly with, cards that aren't really that optimal when you're at 8, 9, 10 play points? I don't think so. And the reason I chose to mention this was because a lot of people are excited for this card. I just think it's kind of counterintuitive that the first archetype you think of when you think of healing is Haven, and it might not be necessarily the greatest card in Haven. It might have better uses in other decks. So that's it for the legendaries I wanted to go over. Moving on, I want to talk about an amulet now, and it's called Tarnished Grail, and I am actually pretty excited for this card. I think it is, Heavenly Aegis has gotten a lot of hype because it was one of the first cards leaked, but I think this Tarnished Grail card is potentially very, very interesting for the game. So it's a gold amulet. It costs 8 play points, and its ability is Countdown 3. Fanfare, deal 2 damage to all followers. So already you're getting value out of it just for playing it. And then last words, randomly put 3 of the following 4 cards into your hand. Servant of Darkness, Silent Rider, Dis's Damnation, and Astaroth's Reckoning. Now immediately, anyone who's familiar with the game will realize these cards are cards from the Prince of Darkness Apocalypse deck. And if you're even more familiar with the game, you will know what all these cards do. Servant of Darkness is just a 5-cost 13/13 beater. Silent Rider is a 6-cost 8/8 with Storm, very powerful card. Dis's Damnation is a 7-cost, deals 7 damage to an enemy, restores 7 health to your leader. Again, extremely powerful card. And Astaroth's Reckoning is a 10-cost, reduce your opponent's leader's health to 1. And the cool thing about Tarnished Grail is it plays into Haven's theme of Countdown Amulets. It's another potential win condition for Haven, again late game and turn 8 like Seraph. So you could get into situations where you could play Seraph on turn 8, or you could play this Tarnished Grail. It just gives Haven so much versatility in the late game for how they want to win games, I think. Because previously, if you wanted to win with these Apocalypse decks cards, you would need to wait till turn 10. And main advantage over Seraph, obviously Seraph is nice because when it finally counts down, you just win the game. But because you can play it and look forward to triggering it immediately after the next turn with Hollow Dogma, or if you play it at 10 play points, like let's say things have gone slightly inoptimally, and you're forced to play it at 10 play points, you can immediately play a Hollow Dogma and make sure it triggers on the next turn, assuming your opponent doesn't, kill the amulet in some way. So potential combo I see here is at 8 play points, you can play the Grail. Then at 9 play points, Dogma Grail. Grail will get you some combination of Silent Rider or Dis's Damnation. You're guaranteed to get one of them. And then if you get 2, you get the very nice option of being able to play whichever is more optimal that turn, because you'll have 7 play points left. So you can play Dis's Damnation, or you can play a Silent Rider, whatever is going to be the better play. So the ability to do that at turn 9 is very strong, I think. And, we haven't even talked about Astaroth's Reckoning. Just getting that to your hand as insurance for turn 10 possibly is very, very strong. Mainly, I see this being used as an alternative with Seraph. So you could be running some ratio of maybe 3 Seraphs and 1 Tarnished Grail, or 2 Grails and 2 Seraphs, whatever. Obviously do some play testing, but who knows what the optimal ratio will be in the end. I just think you could run some ratio of them. And I think it might make Prince of Darkness just obsolete in Haven decks that are non-Guardian Sun Haven. What would be the point of playing it anymore? Maybe if you're really scared of Odins. And that's another thing. I think this is just another card to bait out Odins. People are often just running Odins because they're scared of, Shadow to some extent, he's good value in getting rid of Mordecai's, but mainly I think it's to stop Seraphs. So, yeah, it's just another thing your opponent will have to worry about if they're not playing Rune. They might have to make some tough choices regarding what they hit with their Odin. So personally, I think this is the card that is most interesting out of this. Not maybe objectively the best, but I think it has the most potential to be really shaking up how Haven decks are played. So moving on from the really high rarity stuff, I want to talk about a silver follower, and it's called Karli Yuddam. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but it's a 6 play point, 4/4. And it's interesting. It has Rush and Fanfare reduce 1 from all of your countdown amulets. So the other card in Haven that is like that is obviously Healing Prayer, and it has the benefit of healing you and then reducing 1 from all your countdown amulets. This guy's a little different because, you know, Healing Prayer is a 3 cost, and this guy's a 6 cost. But he has the interesting benefit of having Rush when you play him. So because of that, I think he would be a really good card for Stormhaven variants that focus on quickly overwhelming your opponent by playing a bunch of amulets that you want to count down and spam a bunch of followers. And I think, you know, you can immediately compare him to another card, Garuda, you know, another 6-point follower who has potential advantages over this guy and potential disadvantages. I guess you could see playing other Haven variants, but I think just in general, focusing on the Stormhaven stuff is probably where he'll see the most play. And again, these cards, I mentioned it before, but a lot of these cards are just giving Haven so much versatility. They're giving the deck so many different, the archetypes, so many different ways you can play different decks within the archetype. And I think it really just gives Stormhaven a nice alternative at 6 mana to Garuda. So moving on from that guy, another silver follower, Gravekeepers Tanya. It is a 5 play point 3/5, and it has the ability of ward on unevolved and evolved, and then when it comes in, it has a fanfare of, if there are no other allied followers in play, this follower gains +1/+0 and cannot be damaged by spells and effects. So immediately what I noticed about this card is that it's 5 cost, and Haven, if you're going second and you're evolving on turn 5, you know, Ancient Lion Spirit is kind of the go-to card, especially if your opponent's playing aggro. That's why most people run him, because he makes blood and other aggro decks very, very sad. In some matchups, he's not always that great on turn 5. You don't want to be evolving him. So I think Sonya gives you a nice option in control matchups. You don't have to be playing Ancient Lion Spirit for you to use your play points effectively on turn 5. If you're going second, you can play this guy. And importantly, I think, like I mentioned before, the new format is going to be very control oriented. It's going to be very much a lot of control decks. So you're going to be seeing more control matchups. And I think Sonya is just possibly a better card in those matchups. The last card I want to talk about is a bronze, and it's called Pure Healer. It is a 4 play point 3/3, and it has Fanfare, restore 2 defense to an ally, enhance 6, restore 2 defense to all allies instead. Now, immediately when I saw this card, I thought of Alana decks, obviously. It's about healing. And Alana, for the longest time, has had very much a set rotation of the healers you run. And this card, you know, in Rage Bahamut, we got the frog guy. I forget his name, but he had a similar ability where Enhance, it was a different healing thing. I think he healed your leader for 2 or 3 more health points than if you just played him unenhanced. The downside, again, I did mention this, was that it is a little expensive at 4 play points. You know, if you're not playing it at Enhance, it's really touch and go, but, you know, the point of Haven is, Alana Haven, is just to heal up anyways, so in a pinch, she's a little bit expensive to heal, yes, but you would take it if it's going to give you a critical advantage by boosting your board. Again, I'll finish with the point I mentioned many times in this video. It just gives Alana build, it builds that one extra option as well. You know, I think the theme to take away from all these leaks for Haven, and for all the decks in general, is that they're printing a lot of cards that are giving a lot of decks a lot more versatility, which is one of the great things about this game. I think the cards are often really well designed and they have good thoughts behind them. They're not going to be printing like a ton of garbage cards and then a couple pulls you really want. No, it really prints a lot of cards at all levels of rarity that are potentially very useful, which is, I think it just makes for a good card game. One of the many things that can make a good card game. So that's about it. That's all the cards that I found interesting for Haven out of the leaks, and then the one neutral legendary I thought I'd mention. But yeah, in conclusion, just I think Tarnished Grail is potentially more interesting than Heavenly Aegis, but obviously Heavenly Aegis has the most hype behind it at the moment, as much as you can quantify hype. But yeah, that's about all I wanted to talk about today. So thanks for watching, and see you again soon. Bye.